When I was in university in Canada, I lost my ID. In those days, they didn't have picture IDs. I got called, we have your ID. So I went over and I said, I'm here to pick up the ID for Rhonda McDigan. Welsh name, first name, and an Irish last name. So of course when I walked in, they did not expect me. I said, I am she. Sometimes I walked into classes, Queen's University, and they would ask, are you in the right class? I'm like, yeah, I'm here to learn. Other times, we'll transfer you anywhere in the world. I said, Hong Kong. Oh, there are no blacks in Hong Kong, right? Sometimes they called me Sandy. And I said, but my name's not Sandy. They said, but you're Sandy. I said, no, I met I'm black. And I'm from the islands of the Bahamas. Now, why does that matter? Why does any of that matter, and why are we here? So I'm going to tell a little tale of my life, followed by that of what I've done, where I've come from, and how I got here to this stage today. So, this is why I started. Single mom. I was a product of an affair. I am not ashamed of that, so I am. And I was born and went home to a place like this. Wooden house, no water, no light, no phone, no indoor plumbing. We go outside to the toilet. I am not ashamed of that either. That's how I live, and that's how some of the people in my country still live today. My father gave me his last name, hence McDigan. Hence the surprise when I walked in. So, I can give you many stories as to how I went from growing up there with a single mom, finding out that I had a gift. Like many kids out there who have gifts, but those gifts, they kill us inside because of the color of our skin, because we're female, because we're different. And we're not entitled. We don't feel included. We're excluded for the most part. So, many years later, education, went off to university, became a qualified accountant, and ended up becoming the managing director of the Americas for one of the largest European banks, overseeing all of their hedge funds in the Americas. The woman they thought was the personal assistant in the room was in fact the boss, a black woman from the Caribbean. And I'm proud of being that woman who became that mom. And this is my family. Married an English guy, have a daughter, Haley, and we adopted Maddie from Orlando as a 2-day-old baby because there were so many black kids going into the system. And we wanted to make sure we took one kid and changed the life of one kid. Not that it's better, but that she had a different life. And that's my baby. So, taking you through my life growing up, university, where I ended up in the alternative investment world, and my travels around the world. I've traveled everywhere in my role. And for the most part, people stopped looking at my skin. They looked at what I did, what I brought to the table. It wasn't so important where I came from. But for so many people, that's not the case. So I wanted to give back. I wanted to give back to my country and to persons who were underserved, underrepresented, for some reason judged before anyone got to know them. And so I started to do just that. Starting in the Bahamas, I did it when I lived in Canada, and I did it through Help for Children here in the US, we deal with abuse and protection of kids who are subject to all sorts of violence. So, how did I get into crypto? Right? Post-financial crisis, saw a lot of people being displaced in work. A lot of people who were unemployed. And I decided I was going to do something. So I founded a nonprofit Started doing events on the future of work, what is causing the disruption in human skills as a result of the pace of technology. And for some reason, blockchain took off. It took off from 30 persons showing up at 7 a.m. to people sitting on the floor by the end of the year as I did events. And I started doing events in the Bahamas as well, sharing the knowledge, connecting with people there. People who were, if you go to the Bahamas, we're very mixed, right? Very mixed. And so someone with a last name like McDigan, it's not unusual, right, to see a person of color come into the room. So this is our event last year. Started educating, sharing my knowledge, building a community, decentralized for the most part. I came in because I heard that there will be something special about this particular technology, that this time it would be different, right? That money would know its owner, that refugees can get ID just by biometrics, if nothing else, that it didn't need to know the color, didn't need to know anything about us except that we were its owner. It gave us liberation, it gave us a voice, it made us feel free. And that's what we've been sharing in our group. Last year, we brought students with us. We did our first event. This was our event last year. We had an event in 2019 and 2 events during COVID. And these kids, you don't need to know anything, who is what, who's coming from where, but know that they come from all different parts of our society. We had kids that came from very underserved community. We had kids who came from poor communities. I mean, one young man had, we had an issue with his shoes, and someone said, "Man, what's going on?" He says, "My shoes are too small." And if you met these kids, I mean, they came up and they hugged me. I didn't care what color they were. I didn't care where they came from. The fact is, I'm a mom, and I know who they are inside, and it doesn't matter, like any other mom. So why does that matter to blockchain? Why does that matter to crypto, right? It matters because it's not what it says it's the promise is. It's not what it is said it will do for us, for the most part. And it's because we have things that happen. And we are not going to go back and talk about those things. Those are facts. They happened. What we're here today is to find out, what are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? And so after the event of this event, we had a tsunami, a crypto tsunami, I would call it. And I refuse to call the name of the company because I don't think that I need to. We all know, right? We all know who they are. And we don't know how those 2 young men, the 2 young men I'm going to tell you about, got to where they are. So I'm going to tell you the story of a young man I have never met. I don't know his family, but I know people like him. I know the journey, having come from where I came from, what I have seen and what I've experienced as a person of color, who happens to be a mother, who happens to be a female, who happens to be a lot of different things. But I'm no different if you were to take away my melanation, how I look, tone of my color, of my skin. So there's a great injustice here. And many people don't know who this young man is. I don't know who he is. But it really killed me inside when I found out his story, and I found out the story of the gentleman on the left. You're right. They both love the sunset. Started out with the beauty of nature. Tyre Nichols is his name. I call his name because I want you, if you don't know him, to check who he is. Enjoying the sunset, taking photos, skateboarding, and he is heading home to his mother. Just trying to get home. There's a young man here on your right, my left, enjoying making profits in the beautiful islands of the Bahamas, right? Finds himself in a bit of a predicament, also trying to get home. He stopped on the street, doesn't know why they stopped him, said, "I've done nothing wrong." And he's killed, he's beaten as he screams for his mom. And he dies. No one helps him. No one saw him or cared for him. Yet, around the same time, another young man, different perhaps, but maybe not so, because it's someone's child. He's arraigned, or he's arrested. He's given the luxuries of a small nation, protected him, and made sure he got home to his mother around the same time that he went home in another way. Never to hug his mother again, and never for her to see her son alive again. And we ask, where is the moral, what is the moral dilemma here? Or is it our moral compass as human beings that someone who's entitled, who's got a different skin color, perhaps money and connections, that life means more than a young man who's just trying to go home to his mother? He gets to go home and see his mother, but he doesn't. And for that, the entire industry takes on a different meaning to all of us. So I ask you, I implore you today, why are we here? What do you want from this industry? Are you doing what you can to educate and share the space? Because we live every day just once in a lifetime, and we have the power to change what is something I consider the reason why we're here. And that's an individual thing. And I ask you, from today on, I hope my message, the message of a mom, from the perspective of a mom, for any mom, we want our kids to come home. And whether the kid has done something horribly wrong, she still is entitled to hug her child and support her child and not have her child judged by the color of her skin. Like any one of us in this room, we don't want to be judged as female, as BIPOC, a new word I learned, which is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So I leave you with that message. Answer the question, why are we here? Thank you.